The hum of the vacuum cleaner echoed through the marble-floored corridor as a woman in a faded blue janitor's uniform pushed it slowly forward. Her arms ached, her back screamed from hours of scrubbing and mopping, but she didn't stop. Not yet. Not while the boardroom, the biggest, most intimidating room in the building, was still untouched. It was nearly midnight, and everyone had gone home hours ago. Everyone but her. She walked into the boardroom with a heavy sigh, her reflection trembling in the giant glass table that once hosted powerful men and women during the day. It was here, in this silence, amidst the scent of disinfectant and her own quiet exhaustion, that something utterly unexpected happened. As she bent to pick up a discarded paper cup, a voice behind her softly said, "Need a hand with that?" She turned, startled, mop in hand, only to find a man in an unbranded black hoodie and jeans standing at the doorway. She had no idea who he was. What she didn't know, was that he owned the building. Before we dive deeper into this emotional journey of resilience, humility, and human connection, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in the goodness of people, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel Our Apple of Hope if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of humanity. Your support helps bring stories like this to life. Her name was Amina. A widow, a mother, a dreamer once, but now just a cleaner in a world that seldom noticed people like her. Life had not been kind to her. Once a teacher in her home country, war had torn her world apart. She had fled with her young son, leaving behind everything she knew. Years later, she found herself in a foreign land, washing offices she could once have worked in, while struggling to make ends meet. Every night after her shifts, she returned to a cramped, noisy apartment in a rundown neighborhood, where her 10-year-old son, Sammy, waited with leftover lentils and an unfinished book in his lap. She used to read to him every night. Now, she often returned too late and too tired. The building she cleaned was massive, sleek glass exteriors, gold-accented elevators, and automatic lights that sensed people who belonged. Amina always walked like a shadow, silent and unnoticed. People never asked her name, never thanked her. Her world was confined to late hours, empty corridors, and floors that sparkled under her care but never gave anything back. She worked 7 days a week, rarely complained, and had one dream: to save enough to send Sammy to a proper school. That evening had been harder than usual. A minor water leak on the top floor had her running up and down with buckets and rags for hours. Her gloves had torn. Her lunch had spilled in her bag during the commute. And now, she stood alone in the enormous boardroom, her last task of the night. That's when the man in the hoodie stepped inside. He looked ordinary. Young, maybe in his early 30s, with kind eyes and a quiet presence. Without waiting for her answer, he picked up a nearby cloth and started wiping the chairs. She was too stunned to react. Never, not once, had someone helped her clean. Not a colleague, not a passerby, certainly not a man in jeans and sneakers in a room like this. At first, she assumed he was a new hire, maybe someone from maintenance or facilities. But his hands didn't look like they'd ever gripped a mop before. Still, he cleaned. In silence. Respectfully. Occasionally glancing at her as if trying to match her pace, careful not to overstep. She wanted to tell him to stop, that she could handle it, that she didn't want anyone's pity. But something about him made her stop. When they finished, the room looked spotless. She nodded awkwardly, picked up her bucket, and turned to leave. Before she could step out, he softly asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated. No one ever asked. "Amina," she replied. He smiled, introduced himself simply as Adam, and said, "Nice to meet you, Amina. Thank you for keeping this place beautiful." The next morning, the entire office buzzed with news: the new CEO had arrived. Young, visionary, and humble, they said. Took over the company from his father but was known for doing things differently. No one had seen him yet. But there were whispers. And when Amina saw him from a distance during her shift, wearing a crisp suit and walking beside senior board members, her breath caught in her throat. It was the same man. Adam. The one who helped her mop the boardroom. For days, she stayed invisible, fearing she might have crossed a boundary by letting him clean. But one evening, as she quietly restocked supplies near the cafeteria, a voice behind her said, "Hey, Amina." She turned. It was him again, this time, in a suit. He smiled, no pretense, no arrogance. He thanked her again. Asked about her day. Her son. Her life. She answered cautiously at first, then with growing trust. Soon, it became a quiet routine. Every few nights, he'd find her and ask how she was. He never made a show of it. No cameras, no audience. Just genuine, human kindness. He asked about Sammy, about her homeland, about what she used to do before this job. When she told him she used to be a schoolteacher, something changed in his eyes. Weeks passed. Then, one morning, she was called into HR, not for a warning, as she feared, but for a surprising offer. The CEO had launched a new initiative, a program to help staff upskill and return to their original professions. Amina was offered a part-time role as an assistant in the company's internal training department, with mentorship and language classes included. Her hours were adjusted so she could be home with Sammy in the evenings. Tears streamed down her face as she signed the papers. It was the first time, in years, that she felt seen, not as a cleaner, not as someone in the background, but as a person with potential, with a story worth listening to. Slowly, Amina rebuilt her confidence. She started helping new immigrants adapt to workplace culture, eventually leading training sessions herself. People began to know her name, her story, her strength. And every time she walked past the boardroom, she remembered the night she met the new guy who mopped the floor with her. Adam never spoke publicly about what he did. When journalists asked about his management style, he simply said, "The best leaders are the ones who never forget what it's like to start from the bottom." If this story touched your heart, even a little, please like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to our Apple of Hope for more true, soul-stirring stories that remind us how one act of kindness can change everything.